I was just in the process of writing the first couple of lines of my speech, and now I have to wing it. No, that's not true. One thing I find really interesting is that 41 years ago, I actually worked on the cabinet submission that created LAMP. And I sure wish I'd stolen a copy of it, but as a public servant, you can't take it out. But it was really interesting. It was Sudbury, Manitoulin, Great Huron, Bruce, and LAMP. That were the first multi-service centers. We didn't even call them hubs back there. They were back then. But it was the Davis government that started out on that, and here we are 41 years later, you're still here. So congratulate yourselves. We wondered if they'd last back then, and you're only 9 years to your 50th. 224 years ago, was in 1793 was when Lord Simcoe came and established the first British white settlement on the shores of Lake Ontario, what we now call Toronto, down near Fort York at the foot of Bathurst Street. And when he came, he was a he wasn't a fan of the poor law at all. There was a lot of the British settlers that really had no trucker trade with the poor law. And what that resulted in is a lot of the services got built up at the municipal level. He was trying to build a utopia, and he said, well, we don't need any poor laws, that's just gonna attract poverty in his view, and also the view of Lady Simcoe. So everything developed at the local level here in Toronto, and in 1893 we got our first worker they called the relieving officer. So why is this relevant? It's relevant because until next year, 2018, the municipal governments in Ontario all had a financial role in social assistance. You can't go anywhere else in the country. And you can't go anywhere in the United States and almost nowhere in the Western world where the municipalities have a structural role in funding social services like OW. And up until Dalton McGuinty came in, you even had them in a role in funding ODSP. So that really put a damper on municipal governments and a government like Toronto to actually recommend change and reform in social assistance to put the rates up. Why? Because they had to pay for part of it. But in 2018, for the very, very first time, the City of Toronto and all the municipalities in Ontario have no role in the finances of it. So it frees up all the 44 councillors to call for higher benefits in social assistance without it having any effect on the city's budget. So they are free to do that, and I would hope that you all advocate for that. But right at the very same time, in 2017, on November 2nd, just a month ago, a group of us that were involved in something called the Income Security Roadmap for Reform put out their roadmap report. And it was a very different report because we co-created it with the ministry. Most of all other reports, people are told to go off, write something, and airmail it back into the government, and then the government decides whether they're going to do it or not. In this case, they had already agreed at least to put it out there and road test it, and come up with in our case, a 10-year roadmap for income security reform in the province. In the first 3 years, we are talking about taking the OW single rate. I won't go through all the rates, but to take the OW single rate up to $894 a month from $700 to current $721 a month. So we're talking about a very significant increase of $170 and parallel increases in ODSP. So your municipal councillor and your mayor no longer has the excuse that we will have to pay for these benefits. So my principal message for you today in the 3 minutes I have is to take that fact, Say you no longer pay for this, and that you can advocate for the people of Toronto to get these higher rates. I'd also want to make sure that all of the offices, the city offices, the OW offices, also keep their workers who help people to get on to ODSP. One of the primary reasons people need to go to ODSP is because you get sick when you're on an OW rate because it's so low. So when people are at the point where they could make a credible disability claim, then we should keep all of those workers. And why am I saying something odd like that? Because I think the municipality will start to think that, hey, maybe we don't need those workers anymore because we don't save any money when we send people over to ODSP. So I want you to be really vigilant in making sure, even though there's no longer a financial case for that, that they keep all those workers who do that. So in closing, I want to point out to you a woman at the back named Mary. Mary, please put up your hand from the legal clinic, because what Mary has is the rather than going online and reading 188 pages of our income security reform document, ISAC, the Income Security Advocacy Center, has put out a 12-page, very readable summary of what's in the roadmap so that you can learn what it's calling for, because I think once you do, you're going to be very pleased with it. She also has copies of the consultation package, and the Government of Ontario is asking for everybody to respond to that package by January 5th of next year. Given that Christmas and the holiday season is in the meantime, January 5th is going to come along in a heartbeat. You're still going to be busy making mistakes on your first checks that you write, changing it from 2017 to 2018. But I would urge you all to see Mary to get copies of that so that you're able to take it, respond to the Ontario government, and start talking to your councillor to support the income security reform document. Last point I'll make is that I forgot to include in my bio that I'm also on the one of two GTA members of Minister Jean-Yves Duclos' task force on poverty reduction at the federal level. And so we would also like you to make sure that you continue to support the process, which ends in next September of 2018, where please get comments into the federal ministry, because what they've done, or department, what they have done is put out their own document that basically talks about what they heard as they went across Canada.